This morning I want to talk to you about habits. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Because we have good habits, we have bad habits, and we have ugly habits. And so let's just look at some pictures and we can kind of pick them out as we go. This would be a good habit, right? In all honesty, transparency just for a moment. How many of you are terrible teeth brushers? Okay, a couple of men in the room. Okay, and one woman. So, it's a great habit. And I didn't learn how important this habit was until I went to the dentist and had some teeth that had root canals, that needed root canals, and the pain that was involved in that. And I was like, it's a lot less painful to brush your teeth in the morning than it is to endure this. So, habits, good one. Exercise. How many of you, you're fitness people? You love to get out. Chris, yeah, all right, okay. You love Emma because she's a fitness trainer. She's an instructor. She's like, I will help you get in shape, all right? And I say, round's a shape. That's a good shape. Okay. All right. How many of you love to read? You're readers. How many of you ever heard that statement, readers are leaders? Yeah, reading is good. It's time for us to turn that television off and pick up a book. It's really healthy for us. Let's look at some bad habits here. Any nail biters in the room? Got some nail biters? Yeah, that's a bad habit. All right. How about nose pickers? Any nose pickers in the room? All right. Yeah. Tim? Dave? Yeah, Dave. Okay. All right, smokers, anybody that has been delivered from smoking, okay? Anybody that needs prayer to be delivered from smoking, okay? It's a struggle. I mean, it really is. It's something that, in the years gone past, the church looked at you as you were evil and that you didn't know Jesus. But the reality of it is the difference between nail biting and smoking is smoking's more expensive. So it's just one of those things to where we've got to come to grips with. It's a bad habit. It's tough. It's tough to break it. Let's look at some ugly habits, okay? Some of you might think drug use is not in the church, but the fact is there may be people that struggle with prescription drug use right here in this room, or they may struggle with drug use, period, right here in this room, or you have a close friend or family member that is really battling drug use, and it's a horrible, ugly habit that really ruins a lot of lives. Alcoholism is another problem in our culture today. It's a struggle that we as a culture have somehow said, hey, let's sell as much of this product as we possibly can and hope that most of the people that drink it don't end up like this. But the fact is there are people that end up like this, and some of you in this room might be either recovering alcoholics and or you're struggling with alcohol, and you really want to be set free from that. Right now, in our culture, for the first time in history, pornography is at an all-time high. And it is available to anybody in any place. If they can make it to a computer, they can look at endless pictures and videos of things that God would so agonize over. Because he says not a hint of sexual immorality. And can I emphasize just one thing on that word, sexual immorality, because we come across it all the time. I just want to teach you something. In the scriptures, sexual immorality is any form of sexual behavior outside of marriage between a man and a woman. Any form. Whether it be premarital, whether it be adultery, whether it be fooling around, or whether it be, in our culture today, would hate me for saying it, homosexual behavior. Any form of sex or sexual activity outside of the marriage union between a man and a woman is sexual immorality. All right, so we've got a big problem with this in our culture. Sadly, kids that are in single digits and early elementary ages are exposed to this and seeing it often. Parents hand their kid a smartphone and they say, be good, and there's no way for them to monitor their good behavior or bad behavior. Their habits can get out of control really quick. Another ugly habit is gossip. It's an ugly habit, but some of you really struggle with this habit of talking about others. You just don't know what to talk about, so you talk about somebody else. You talk about them behind their back. You talk about them amongst their friends. And, oh, I don't like this about that person. Or, did you know they did this? And gossip is a horrible, divisive cancer to the church or to culture or to any community of people. Gossip is an ugly, ugly habit. And it really is a habit, because I've talked to people that have said, I try not to, but I always go back to it. It's so hard because it's a habit. It's something that you got used to doing when you were in elementary school or junior high. And as an adult man or an adult woman, you're still, I got to tell you this, juicy bit of news that will hurt another person, but don't tell them I said it. And then I'm going to put 3 slides of this one up, because I think that the church has made a big mistake in fixating on the drugs and alcohol slide and not enough on the one that really affects most of the people in this room. And that is gluttony. We eat too much. It's a habit to sit down and I'm on the computer. I'm going to sit down and have another burger, and I'm going to have some fries, and sure, why not have the shake? And the next thing you know, you're watching TV and you decide I need a pizza, and a commercial came on and I want more food, and I'm going to go pop popcorns, or I'm going to make a Mac Daddy plate of nachos and cheese and jalapenos and sour cream. And anybody getting hungry? We've got a bad habit of overeating. We've got a bad habit of eating and eating and eating. And I am the first one to stand up and say, that is my number one bad habit. It's the one that I need God to help me with the most. It's a struggle. So let's look at what habits are. If we read the definition that we find in Webster's, it says a habit is a routine of behavior that is repeated regularly and tends to occur unconsciously. Think about that for a moment, that you do these things unconsciously. Nail biters in the room. One more time. Let's see those hands. Makes sense, doesn't it? Unconsciously. You ever have somebody, as you're trying to stop nail biting, you've said, hey, I really need help. If you see me biting my nails, tell me. And then you look over and they're biting their nails, and you tap them and they're like, what? I'm telling you to stop biting your nails. Oh, because it's an unconscious behavior. But how did that unconscious behavior become unconscious behavior? It was through repeated regularity. You did it over and over and over and over, and you got so accustomed to doing it that it became an unconscious behavior. If we look at habit formation is the process of by which a behavior through regular repetition becomes automatic or habitual. It's just regular activity. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and the next thing you know, I'm just doing this, and it's my habit now. Recent studies, I know that's low for those of you that are in the back, but recent studies indicate it takes at least 60 days to develop a new habit. Now, I've heard 21 days, I've heard 30 days, but we're such an ADD culture that I think 66 days is pretty accurate to how long it takes us to develop a habit, a new habit. So, when we look at starting a new habit, I want you to see these 3 R's of habit formation. 1 is remind, 2 is routine, 3 is reward, okay? So this is habit formation. You want to start some new habits in your life, and we're going to get into why we need to start some new habits in our lives a little bit later on. But please understand, this is important to understand. If you want to start something good, a good habit in your life, this will help you get going. Okay, so let's look at each one of these. Number 1 is remind, all right? So you got your cell phone. It rings. When it rings, that's a trigger or a cue. It reminds you. This is the reminder that initiates the behavior. The ring acts as a trigger or a cue to tell you to answer your phone. It is a prompt that starts behavior. In our habits that we already have, you have triggers or cues or reminders that happen to you that help you or get you to a place of saying, I'm going to go do this behavior. Now, I want you to think for a moment about television. And you're in your home for the TV watchers in the room. What do you think a good cue is when you're watching television for you to get up and go to the refrigerator and eat some more food? Commercials. They're the biggest trigger that you have in your home when it comes to eating too much. So, when we hear our phone ring, bing, it's a trigger to a behavior. And that is, I need to get my phone out of my pocket and I need to answer it, all right? So that's a reminder. We all have these reminders. Second, routine. You answer your phone. This is an actual behavior. When your phone rings, you answer the phone. Some of you do, some of you don't. Some of you look at it and determine whether you're going to or not. But the reality of it is, you have a trigger. And then you have a reminder, and then you have a routine, which is your behavior. Then, the last one is the reward. You find out who's calling you. Ring. Routine, pull that out. Reward. Who's calling me? Listen to this. This reward, this is a reward or a punishment depending on who's calling you, okay? That's the way habits work. They'll either reward you, brushed my teeth, or they'll punish you, I ate another cheeseburger. The reality of it is every habit formation has these 3 steps. They have the bing, reminder, routine, reward. You've won a pile of manure. That's a reward, right? I mean, it really is sad, but this is the thing we have to understand. Every habit has these 3 steps of formation. The thing is we struggle with what a reward is. Is a reward something good, like my teeth don't have cavities? Or is a reward something like, this cheeseburger made me fat? Either way, the reward is, this cheeseburger is delicious, and we don't realize the consequence of that reward. Or brushing teeth is annoying, but the consequence of the reward is fabulous. My teeth don't have cavities, and I don't need another root canal. So, the reward is the benefit gained from doing the behavior. You wanted to find out why the person on the other end of the call was calling you, and discovering that piece of information is a reward to completing the habit. So we have this formation of habits. So if we look back at some of these habits, and we start thinking in terms of, these are things that need to stop in my life. That one's for you, Dave. Okay. These are things that I need to do in my life. These are important things. The thing is when it comes to trying to stop a habit, it's not about behavior management. As a follower of Jesus Christ, we have to come to a point to where we realize that there has to be an internal influence versus the external influence. See, we try to behavior manage ourselves into being a person with good habits, but the struggle is real. Your sinful nature gets in the way. You're trying your best to try to stop smoking or stop biting your nails or getting off of the computer or stop eating so much or whatever your habit might be. But the thing is you start, you try, you fail. You start, you try, you fail. And if there's not an internal influence, then the external influence is so weak, it will just continue to revert back to its bad habits. I want to illustrate this by saying, the Burger King right over here, does anybody own or operate that Burger King in the room? Does anybody work there? Okay, good. Just keep this in this room. The Burger King over there on Bauer Road or on Hospital Drive, whatever that is, one of the worst Burger Kings in the state, okay? When I would go in there, it was so poorly run. It was dirty. You weren't sure whether you got what you got. When you got what you got, you didn't know what you got. It was just one of those places. But I like Burger King, and I like Whoppers, and obviously. And it's one of them things to where I would keep going back, and I'd leave every time going, why do I go to this Burger King? And I drove by there yesterday, and I saw that they're changing the outside of it. They're tearing all the stuff off, and they're putting a brand new exterior on it. And it immediately came to my mind, yeah, wonderful, they're changing the outside. But if they don't change the inside, it's going to be the same dirty Burger King, right? It's going to be the same bad service. It's going to be the same experience that I experienced before. It's just going to be cleaner on the outside. And this is the difference between external influences and internal influences. If we don't come to a place to where we pursue the Lord and saying, God, I need you to help me here. I'm struggling. I need you desperately to change me internally. Then we're just going to continue to revert back to the bad habits over and over and over again. Derek Clark, you said that you defeated smoking. Would you say that it was just because you had the willpower, or would you say that it was because God finally got a hold of you and said, you can do this? You're hesitating.
It was God.
Yeah, it was a blend. It was a blend. And that's the thing we have to understand, is the truth is you can't just stop something without God, and you can't just say, okay, God, do it, and then expect it to happen. It's somewhere in the middle of you saying, I'm deciding right now to stop, and I am pursuing God to help me to defeat this. You see the difference? It's not just a full dependence on one or a full dependence on the other. You have to play your part as well as God being the one you pursue to do the internal work that changes you. Do you hear that? You have to include the Lord, and you really have to include Him in a place to where it's like, God, help me to do this. I'm going to really try to behavior manage myself. No. God, give me the ability to change the way that I think, so that I can move forward as a different person at the end of this. I truly need you to do this. So when we read some scriptures, and it really speaks to this concept, Romans 12:2, very popular passage. Do not copy the behaviors and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good, pleasing, and perfect. We have to come to a point to where we start right here. Let God. Let God. But you can't let God do something if you're never with God, if you're never with His followers. He made the church so that we can be in fellowship with the church, so that we can encourage each other, motivate each other, correct each other, challenge each other. We need the church. He gave it to us for a reason. And so we have this word that we read, the Bible. We have this relationship with the Lord through His Son, and we have this church. And we have to find ourselves in all three of those arenas so that we can let God transform us. Last week at the car show, I showed pictures of an old VW bus that was pulled up out of the bottom of a lake, and it was all rotting. But somebody was going to restore that. But you know, if they never take that bus to a restoration shop, it will never be restored. They have to let the mechanics do the restoration. And you have to find yourself in the presence of what God has availed Himself to you. Relationship with Him, His Word, prayer, His church, so that He can do the transforming work that's necessary so that He can change the way you think. We have to come to a place to where if we want to break old habits, bad habits, and we want to start new habits, good habits, we have to find ourselves right here. God, I'm going to let you transform me. I'm going to let you change the way I think. We also find in Romans 12:1, this is right before that passage. Look at how this reads. And so, dear brothers and sisters, I plead with you to give your bodies to God because of all He has done for you. Let them be living and holy sacrifices, the kind that He will find acceptable. This is the true way of worship. If you're going to let God have you so that you can be changed, you have to go back to this passage and understand it precedes it. It precedes it by saying this beautiful thing. Let your body be a living and holy sacrifice. Be alive in Christ Jesus and be set apart for his service. Be alive in Christ Jesus and be set apart for his glory. Holiness is lacking in our culture. And the reality of it is it's lacking in our church. And honestly, in some ways, it's lacking in our assembly. Holiness is important to God. He wants us to make a sacrifice of ourselves, our own desires. Our sinful nature wants what it wants, but he wants us to make a sacrifice and say, I don't need that. It's unholy to me. It's not good for me. And so I will put it away and I will pursue you, Lord. Because in your marriage, this world has a lot of things to offer you that would be unhealthy for your marriage if you consume them. And in your marriage union with the Lord, this world has a lot of things to offer you, but they would be horrible for your relationship with the Lord if you consume them. The Lord wants us to give our bodies to him as living for him, set apart sacrifice. Okay. When we read 1 Corinthians 10:13, when we're dealing with habits, which bad habits have temptations. Those are the triggers or the reminders, the cues I talked about. The temptations in your life are no different from what others experience. And God is faithful. Stop there and look at those 4 words. And God is faithful. He's faithful to helping you. He will not allow the temptation to be more than you can stand. When you are tempted, he will show you a way out so that you can endure. You can continue on. You can finish the race. He will show you a way. But when we're so distant from God, he's on the other end of a football field saying, no, go right. Go right. Not sure what he's saying. This cheeseburger's delicious. The reality is, he's trying to show us the way that we should go, but when we're not in fellowship with him, in his word, in relationship with him, in prayer, and in the body of believers, which he calls us to, and how can he show us the way out? And so we have to begin to develop some new habits. So, 1 Corinthians 6:12 says this, you say, I'm allowed to do anything. But not everything is good for you. And even though I am allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. Now, I read this week about this guy that he felt like the Lord convicted him to stop eating chocolate. Some of you are twitching. This is just him. This is what we would log as a personal conviction. All right, in the month of July 1st, I felt a personal conviction that I needed to begin to drink only water. Now, that doesn't seem like a big deal to some of you, but I was a big coffee drinker. In the morning, I was a 2 to 3 cup of morning, and then in the evenings, I was 2 cups easily. In the evening, I loved my coffee. I was the one that would come in and make the first pot of coffee on Sunday morning. So when Matt Hare came in, he could just walk over and it was freshly brewed and ready. And when I went to water in July, Matt noticed. Matt noticed because he came in and the pots were empty and he kind of shook. He's like, what's going on? Oh, we had a coffee? But I had a personal conviction that I had to honor the Lord with, and I had to say, God, this is what I need to do. And so I'm going to do this. It was my conviction. It may not be yours. Chocolate might not be yours. But see, not everything is beneficial to us. It may be allowable. Chocolate's allowable. Coffee's allowable. But it wasn't beneficial to that guy. It wasn't beneficial to me. And so I made a change. Can I tell you? I had a killer headache the first 4 days. Now, I continued that on into August because I felt so good because of that choice that I made. And I'm developing a habit that I'm happy with. I'm happy with that habit. It makes me feel better. And And I just want you guys to know, when you find that the Lord speaks to you about something specific, say yes. Somebody might say, you're allowed to have coffee. Nothing wrong with a chocolate bar. It's not in the Ten Commandments. Nowhere in Scripture does it say thou shalt not eat chocolate. Thank the Lord. But the truth is for him it was that, for me it was this, and I don't know how long I'll feel this way, but right now it's important to me. And I've made a decision. Can I tell you, at the end of July, wrapping up the end of July, I began to pray, Lord, what's the next thing that you want me to work on or do? I called it my July experiment. I was just making an experiment. I told myself I can do anything for 31 days. So I stopped drinking everything but water. It was so successful, I was like, God, what should my August experiment be? And it just felt real quick, like he said, stop watching TV and pick up a book. I was like, okay. I tell you, that was harder than giving up coffee. It really was, because I have a bad habit of just sitting and vegging when I get home and watching a TV show or 5. It's just one of them things. And so I made the decision, okay, God, I'm going to turn the TV off, and I'll pick up a book. Can I tell you, that's been great for me. I love it. It's a great habit that I started. But if I don't stick with it for 66 days, I'm stuck. I'm going right back to what I was before. And I'll tell you, I really didn't like the guy I was before. So I really want to continue this on because it's just been good. And I thank the Lord for it. So I want you guys to understand, it's time to develop some healthy habits. And if you want to get rid of some of the things that are bad habits or ugly habits in your life, then let's begin to develop some habits in spending time in God's Word, spending time in prayer, journaling the things that you're thankful for in your prayers, and regularly attending service. I'm going to ask the worship team to come up here, and we're going to spend some time praying and asking God to help us to see what He wants us to work on. Now, you're going to leave here with a little sheet of paper that will be homework for the week, okay? Giving you homework. This is Sunday school homework, okay? But I want you guys to hear this about church attendance and what has happened in our culture. Jerry and Monica, Linda and Terry Tate and myself were having a conversation in Wednesday night Bible study, which is going on, by the way, every Wednesday night, 7 to 8. Give up an hour of your life. It will improve it drastically. But we were having this conversation, and my brother had just came back from this training on church planting. And he said that the new current statistic for people attending church is they feel like they are committed members of the church if they attend once a month. Once a month. The average U.S. citizen feels as if they are committed members of a body of believers if they attend once a month, 12 times a year. And then the core members of the church believe that they are truly core members if they attend twice a month. When we were talking, and I first got saved, this is late 80s going into the early 90s, you were a committed member if you were there Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night. You were a core member if you were some of the people that taught those things on Sunday or Sunday night or Monday night or Wednesday night. I mean, it was 3 nights a week, and then if they had any revival service or special anything, you were there. If they opened the doors to the public, you were in the building. That was core. Committed was you're there Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night. And so this culture baffles me because this is a community of believers that love the Lord and want to help each other out. And when we're only there once a month, you can't help me very much, can you? If I do a job and only you show up to work once a week, Thanks. Hey, could you catch me up on what's been going on? Well, a lot's been going on. You missed it because you've been gone. I think one great habit for the church, real life, pray that the Lord would convict you or convince you that this is important, is that you say, Sundays are important. I can make sure that I'm there Sunday morning. Because remember, God said, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, set apart for Him. And this is for Him. Let's spend some time in worship. Let's spend some time in prayer. If you would like to pray with somebody, I'm just going to put you guys on the spot. Would you two stand over here and let people come to you and you can pray with them? And Brian and Marshall, would you two come over on this side and let people come to you and pray? If you would like prayer, I'm going to just say, if you have a bad habit and you're just saying, I need change, come to these and let them pray with you. That God would just deliver you and guide you and let you help you create new habits that will keep you from the bad ones.